a little bit over. So we are starting this meeting at 9:37. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, as amended by Charter, Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, as extended to June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Barnstable County Commissioners will be conducted via both in-person and remote means in accordance with applicable law. Members of the public are invited to watch the meeting through live real-time broadcast at www.youtube.com/user/Barnstable County or on www.capecod.gov, where public participation is required by law or allowed by the board chair. Persons wishing to participate may do so either in person or by accessing the meeting via Microsoft Teams. For instructions on how to join the meeting remotely, please refer to the meeting agenda found at the Barnstable County website under the Meeting Center menu. And with that, I call to order the September 10th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Regional Commissioners, and please join us for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and may we have a moment of silence to reflect on the bravery and sacrifices of all those who put their lives on the line in service to our country, protecting our safety, our freedom, and our democracy. Thank you. Is there any public comment? And there is none online, so we will move on to the approval of the meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the August 27th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
I will second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, we're moving on to general business, and we have a regional policy plan update from Christy Santori. I imagine is she with us?
Well,
Yes,
there
she
she
is. Of course, she's with us. She's been waiting. Okay, Christy, and you can all introduce yourself, all of you who are here, and we look forward to hearing these updates.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today to present the draft 2025 regional policy plan. This plan is out for public comment until September 24th, 2025. As many of you know, it's been a lengthy process to update the plan. There have been many opportunities for stakeholder engagement and public input and feedback. And so what we'd like to share with you today is a preview of that draft plan. Certainly there will be some changes to the draft prior to submitting it to you and the Assembly of Delegates as an ordinance. But we wanted to give you a preview to see if you have any feedback or questions at this time, or certainly after today's meeting as well. So I am joined today by Chloe Schaefer, our Chief Planner, and Erin Perry, Deputy Director, and it looks like we are able to share some slides, so that's great. So all of this information that we're sharing today, as well as the draft plan, is available on our website, so anyone can take a look at the information contained within that draft. But what we'd like to do is review the process to date and the contents of the plan, and then again, we're happy to take your feedback and answer any questions today or at any point after today. So I think first we can begin with that project timeline. So as you can see here, we began the process to update the regional policy plan last fall. We held initial sub-regional public hearings, really kicking off the process. We held a number of focus groups throughout the winter on topic-specific areas to get some more information and some feedback as we looked to update the plan. We conducted a resident survey, really trying to hear back from residents across the Cape, getting their insights and perspectives on certain planning issues. And then we held a number of additional stakeholder meetings as we made amendments to the plan to get some feedback on those potential changes. And then in June, we completed a draft of the plan. So the public comment period is ongoing. We extended that public comment period to give people an additional few weeks into the fall timeframe, so that will close on September 24th. And throughout this timeframe, we actually had a subcommittee of the Cape Cod Commission following the progress as well, providing input, attending those public hearings, and taking that feedback and input from stakeholders as well as the general public. So we'll go through each of the chapters of the plan now briefly. Obviously, we're not going to hit on everything that's contained within those chapters, but I'd like to hit many of the highlights and then many of the changes that have taken place so that you can really understand kind of those key elements that are new in this 2025 draft. So the first chapter discusses the region. It describes the 4 subregions. We have made some minor tweaks in this chapter, really adding more about the Wampanoag tribe who've been here for thousands of years. This chapter also discusses the Cape Cod Commission's responsibilities. Chapter 2 is moving into the evolution of the regional policy plan. And here you can see on the next slide the different chapters, the different covers of the regional policy plan from 1991 up until our latest plan. So obviously in 1991, this was our first RPP. Really, the vision was protecting the best of Cape Cod, repairing the mistakes of the past. And you can see that evolution. There was a major shift in 2009 and 2012 where we divided the planning and regulatory sections. You'll probably recall that. And then in 2018, we also did a major overhaul to the RPP where we really focused on context-sensitive planning and design and made the shift to a goals and objectives-based review for the regional review for developments of regional impact. And that also now assists our local communities in local comprehensive planning and others. So as I mentioned earlier, we held a number of focus groups throughout the course of this process as well. This chapter also discusses many of the elements of the stakeholder process. And so you see those issue areas here where we held those focus groups, transportation, economy, housing, open space, and climate change, really trying to make sure that we were capturing the best available information. We're hearing from experts in these areas that could really help inform the updates that were needed to the plan. And then this chapter also summarizes the results of the resident survey that we completed. So here you can just see a snapshot of some of the contents, the data within that survey. We had over 1,200 respondents to the survey, 91% citing environmental quality as either important or very important to them in deciding to live or maintain a home on the Cape. And then you can see that chart on the right, the top concerns. And so this is the percent of residents that identifying a moderate or serious problem now or in the next 5 years. And at the top of the list were affordable housing, coastal erosion, traffic congestion, and sea level rise and pond water quality. So certainly not surprising, these top concerns, I think, obviously translate into many of our top challenges and our top priorities, not only within the commission, but for the regional policy plan itself. And so this chapter also details the public and stakeholder meetings that were held over the course of many months. We've held in-person and virtual meetings, providing ample opportunity to not only provide an update on the process, but share information about what we learned through the survey, the focus groups, and really take information and feedback from stakeholders on the proposed changes to the goals and objectives, as well as the recommended actions, and just provide additional opportunities for feedback. So then the next chapter is the regional vision for Cape Cod. So this chapter is the same chapter as the previous regional policy plan, but what you can see here, the regional vision actually remains the same. The vision for the future of Cape Cod is a region of vibrant, sustainable, and healthy communities and protected natural and cultural resources. We did make some tweaks to the growth policy for Barnstable County. So now you can see the growth policy reads that growth should be focused in centers of activity, in areas supported by adequate infrastructure, and guided away from areas that must be protected for ecological, historical, or other reasons. Development should be responsive to context, allowing for the restoration, preservation, and protection of the Cape's unique, and here we've added in finite resources while promoting economic, environmental, and community resilience. We heard feedback throughout this process that we needed to make sure to recognize that the resources on the Cape are finite, and our environmental resilience is equally important as our economic economic and community resilience. So really incorporating those into the growth policy was important for us as we looked to update the regional policy plan. And then moving into chapter 4, this is the Cape Cod systems. This chapter does have some significant changes to it, but it's because we updated it to include more current data and more information really to reflect the state of the Cape Cod systems. You can see here, we're still describing the natural systems, the built systems, and the community systems, all of these that comprise the region and need to work cooperatively. They're all interrelated, but really providing more information to share to really inform the regional policy plan. And then the last chapter I'll touch on is the key regional priorities. This chapter previously was called our key regional challenges, and we really wanted to make sure that this is clear that while these are our major challenges, these are also our major key regional priorities, really making it more action-oriented and forward-looking. So here you can see those key regional priorities are protecting open space and natural resources, restoring and protecting coastal and freshwater quality, mitigating climate change and adapting to its impacts, preserving historic and cultural resources, increasing housing attainability, planning and providing for necessary infrastructure, and strengthening the Cape's economy. So these are the key regional priorities. Many of these, of course, are the priorities of the Commission and are the regional priorities for the regional policy plan and help inform the remaining chapters as well. So at this point, I'm going to hand it to Chloe Schaefer, our Chief Planner, who will walk through the goals and objectives that are contained within the plan and focusing really on some of those major changes to the plan, and she'll address a couple of other chapters as well. So I'll hand it to you, Chloe.
Thank you. Good morning. As Christy mentioned, my name is Chloe Schaefer. I'm the Chief Planner at the Commission. I'm going to dive into the goals and objectives in Chapter 6. The goals and objectives really are important both in our planning work, but also for our regulatory review process. And the chapter remains organized using those three systems, the natural, built, and community systems, similar to the 2018 Regional Policy Plan. And within each of those systems are specific issue areas or topic areas that have a goal and corresponding objectives. So I'm going to start in the natural systems with water resources, the goal being to maintain a sustainable supply of high quality drinking water and protect, preserve, or restore the ecological integrity of Cape Cod's fresh and marine surface water resources, and objectives remaining focused on groundwater quality, our freshwater resources and marine water resources, as well as managing and treating stormwater, and that final objective remaining to manage groundwater withdrawals and discharges. Next, ocean resources. This remaining the same, the goal being to protect, preserve, or restore the quality and natural values and functions of ocean resources, and those three objectives. The first remaining looking at the location of development and locating away from those sensitive areas. The second, preserving and protecting the ocean habitat and the species that it supports. And then the third related to human use areas and vistas and protecting those. Next, under wetlands resources, the goal remaining to protect, preserve, or restore the quality and natural values and functions of inland and coastal wetlands and their buffers. And the first objective remaining focused on protecting wetlands and their buffers from changes to vegetation or grade changes. The second objective has changed somewhat. What was previously a separate third objective dealing with stormwater has been combined with the second objective and streamlined to reduce some redundancies between the two objectives. Additionally, when we're talking about potential impacts from stormwater discharges to wetlands, often talking about those potential changes to hydrology. So made sense to group it into that objective and streamline there. And then the third objective remaining focusing on promoting the restoration of degraded wetlands. Next, under wildlife and plant habitat, no changes to the goal and objectives here. So the goal remaining to protect, preserve, or restore wildlife and plant habitat to maintain the region's natural diversity. The first objective focused on maintaining the plant and wildlife habitat and populations that we have. The second, focusing on restoring degraded habitats. The third, looking at protecting and preserving rare species habitat with a particular emphasis and focus on vernal pools and their buffers. Fourth objective here is managing invasive species. And then the last one here, looking to really protect wildlife and plant habitats from potential impacts of development. Next, under open space, the goal remaining to conserve, preserve, or enhance a network of open space that contributes to the region's natural and community resources and systems. The first objective here being to protect and preserve natural, cultural, agricultural, and passive recreational resources. Agricultural is a suggested addition here. This is in response to feedback gained throughout the focus groups and the stakeholder process thus far to help really elevate and highlight the importance of our agricultural resources. And then passive was added to help clarify the types of recreational resources that are being talked about and covered when we're speaking about them within the broader framework of open space here. The second objective remaining to maintain or increase the connectivity of open space, and then just kind of a wordsmithing change in that third one, still focusing on providing protected open space appropriate to context as well. Moving on to the built systems, the community design goal and objectives remaining the same. So the goal to protect and enhance the unique character of the region's built and natural environment based on the local context. The first objective focused on building and site design and ensuring that it's context sensitive and really enhances and complements that Cape Cod character that's really critical to the region. The second one is focused on minimizing newly disturbed land and impervious surfaces. And then the third one is really more specific to infrastructure, larger infrastructure projects, and avoiding adverse visual impacts from those on our scenic resources. Next, coastal resiliency. The goal here remaining to prevent or minimize human suffering and loss of life and property or environmental damage resulting from storms, flooding, erosion, and relative sea level rise, including but not limited to that associated with climate change. This first objective has been reworked to minimize development and risk within areas vulnerable to flooding. Previously, this used the term floodplain, but now using that broader term of areas vulnerable to flooding to recognize that places that are flooding today or that are susceptible in the near and longer term future may not be captured by the current designated floodplain. So want to make sure that we are addressing those challenges. And so hence the change to that term there. And also what was previously in a third objective, dealing with more of the risk to the built environment has been streamlined into this objective as well. The second objective now, planning for erosion and accretion, really focused on changes to the shoreline there. And then the third objective being looking at restoring coastal resource areas to promote their natural beneficial functions. Next, capital facilities and infrastructure. The goal here to guide the development of capital facilities and infrastructure necessary to meet the region's current and demonstrated future needs. The objectives were reworked a little bit as well. So the first objective now is really focused on the siting and design of capital facilities and infrastructure and ensuring that they're efficient, sustainable, and resilient. And then the second objective now dealing more specifically with the actual services provided by a capital facility or infrastructure and ensuring that it's meeting regional needs and is coordinated, that provision is coordinated across the region as well. Next, under transportation, the goal remaining to provide and promote a safe, reliable, and multimodal transportation system. And the first objective remaining focused on improving safety and eliminating hazards for all users of the Cape's transportation system. The second one has been changed a tiny bit to really focus more specifically on healthy transportation and make it more explicit that this is talking about multimodal options and infrastructure. And the third one now is focused specifically on that vehicle trip reduction strategies. Previously, they were combined more so. And then the fourth one, also just a minor kind of more wording edits here to make it more explicit that the fourth one is really specifically dealing with congestion management. Energy, the goal remaining to provide an adequate, reliable, and diverse supply of energy to serve the communities and economies of Cape Cod. And the first two objectives remaining the same, supporting renewable energy development that is context sensitive, and the second, looking at the resiliency of our energy system, generation and delivery. The third one also in substance has not changed, but did have a bit of a wordsmithing change, but still remains focused on promoting energy efficiency and conservation through the design of facilities and planning as well. Next, under waste management, the goal being to promote a sustainable solid waste management system for the region that prioritizes reuse and diversion and protects public health, safety, and the environment. Really, an addition here, just to elevate the idea of reuse and diversion here, and making that also more front and center within this topic area. And then the objectives, the first one, to reduce waste and waste disposal by promoting waste diversion, reuse, beneficial reuse, deconstruction, and other zero waste initiatives. And again, just some additions here, reuse, beneficial reuse, deconstruction, again, just to really elevate and emphasize those concepts here. And the second objective remaining looking at supporting an integrated solid waste management system. And the final topic area within the build system is climate change. This was previously climate mitigation more specifically, and the goal as such was specific more so on climate mitigation and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, based on feedback throughout this process, we heard a need to really make sure that we're addressing climate adaptation as well and improving our resiliency. So this topic area has been brought in to be climate change, more generally capturing both the adaptation and mitigation aspects of it. And so the goal now being to increase the region's resiliency to climate change impacts and mitigate climate change by supporting and contributing as a region to the Commonwealth's interim and long-term greenhouse gas reduction goals and initiatives. The first objective remains focused on the transportation system and promoting low or no carbon alternatives there. The second objective also remaining focused on really building energy use and building systems, so now includes more explicitly calling out promoting electrification of those building systems. The third one still focused on carbon sequestration, on emissions removals, and the fourth focusing on energy generation that is low or no carbon as well. The fifth objective here, though, is an addition, and that one is focused on that adaptation or resiliency aspect that is new within this topic area, and that objective being to promote strategies to address climate change-induced impacts such as wildfire, extreme temperatures, and changes in precipitation. This does leave much of the impacts and effects of things like sea level rise and flooding more specifically to the coastal resiliency section, though, because that is dealt with there. And then moving on to the community systems, the first issue area here, cultural heritage, no changes to the goal or objectives here. So the goal remaining to protect and preserve the significant cultural, historic, and archaeological values and resources of Cape Cod. The first objective really focused on kind of our built environment and preserving the historic forms and massings and really character defining features of those resources and development patterns. The second focusing on protecting and preserving our archaeological resources. The third objective here is to preserve and enhance public access and rights along the shoreline. And the final objective here focusing on some of our more traditional industries, our agricultural and maritime development and uses, and protecting and preserving those. Next is economy. This goal and objectives were reworked significantly to better align with our comprehensive economic development strategy that we completed last year. Also, there was a significant amount of overlap between the objectives under economy and the 2018 regional policy plan with many of the other issue areas. So it has now been streamlined to really focus more specifically on those aspects related to the economy. So the goal now being to promote a resilient, inclusive, and diverse regional economy that protects and builds on Cape Cod's competitive advantages. And now just two objectives. The first really looking to support the traditional emerging businesses and industries in our region. And the second one really focused on enabling local workforce participation as well as local economic activity and entrepreneurship. And then the final issue area, housing, the goal remaining to promote the production of an adequate supply of ownership and rental housing that is safe, healthy, and attainable for people with different income levels and diverse needs. And the first objective remaining the same, focusing on increasing the housing diversity, the choices, the different types of housing within the region. The second one remaining focused on promoting an increase in year-round housing supply. And the third really looking at our existing stock and making sure that it's protected and improved and we don't lose it. The fourth objective has been reworked a little bit. Before it was increasing housing affordability, but now has been changed to increase affordable and attainable housing based on feedback throughout this process, as well as much of the feedback received during development of the regional housing strategy, to provide that emphasis and focus on not just affordable housing, for which there's certainly a tremendous need in the region, but also what is being termed attainable housing. So housing for people who are earning above 80% of area median income, but still really need support to be able to affordably live within the region. And then moving on to Chapter 7, this remains coordinated regional and local planning, and really provides an overview of many of the issue-specific plans and planning initiatives we've undertaken since the last regional policy plan. Certainly things like our climate action plan, the freshwater strategy, the regional housing strategy are all new, but also talking about implementation and progress made on the 208 plan, as well as our new transportation plan and SEDS. This section also provides an overview of local comprehensive plans and how they can really work with and support the regional policy plan as well. And then Chapter 8 remains Cape Cod place types. This was new in the 2018 regional policy plan. And it's really a way of thinking about and describing the region in terms of those areas with similar natural and built characteristics, ranging from our least developed, our most sensitive areas, those natural areas, up to those that are more densely developed, such as our community activity centers and industrial activity centers. And these really serve both a planning role as well as a regulatory role in providing that lens through which our regulatory review is conducted. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Erin Perry.
Thanks, Chloe. Erin Perry, Deputy Director at the Commission, and I'll just walk through the last couple of chapters here in the draft. The Regional Regulatory Review chapter is largely similar to what was included in 2018. It continues to include the role of goals and objectives, the role of technical guidance, role of place types, as well as information on waiver and flexibility and RPP consistency and probable benefit and detriment determination. We do have an updated and expanded section on the role of sensitive resource areas. I'm really expanding on some of those critical resource areas, including habitat, wetlands, endangered species, and others. And perhaps the most significant change here to this section is that it now includes a section on planning tools available through the Act. So tools like the Growth Incentive Zone, the District of Critical Planning Concern, and other tools that were previously included in the local and regional coordinated planning section, but have now been moved here given kind of the relationship of those tools to the regulatory program. And then Chapter 10 is recommended actions. Chapter 10 in the 2018 Regional Policy Plan was really more focused on performance measures. This section, though, now talks about the fact that all of our issue-specific plans include a number of different performance measures to really help us track progress, and that it's really, a critical element of the regional policy plan to look forward at those recommended actions, those critical, initiatives and projects that we need to take on over the next 5 years. And so that's where we're focused here. This section includes recommended actions in each of the 3 systems, natural, community, and built. And I'm just going to take a minute to walk through what you'll see in this chapter under each system. Under natural systems, we have 6 recommended actions. I'll touch on them briefly. Develop a regional open space plan. We know with limited land area left to either develop or protect, and with the significant natural resources within those undeveloped and unprotected areas, that we really need to think critically about our priorities for open space. This came out through the stakeholder process and is something I think we here have heard pretty significantly over the last 5 or so years, and is a recommendation of this plan. We have a number of recommendations related to water quality and better understanding and enabling action to protect our water resources. Developing an advanced dynamic groundwater model. This is something the Commission staff have been discussing with the United States Geological Survey for some time. They have done quite a bit of modeling here on the Cape, and there are opportunities to apply more advanced groundwater modeling to better understand groundwater in the region, and to help support the work that we're doing not only to address coastal water quality and freshwater quality, but broader protection of our groundwater as well. And this really connects to some of the work in the recommended action related to advancing aquifer protection planning, building on the freshwater strategy, and certainly building on the work that has been done over the last decade or more to protect coastal water quality. There are opportunities to apply some of those same kind of principles and planning approaches to advance aquifer protection planning, and certainly that would be enabled by more advanced groundwater modeling. And then finally, developing model wetland bylaws for pond buffer protection. This is something that we heard and is a recommendation of the freshwater strategy. There are opportunities to better support protection of those pond buffer areas. This is a role that the Commission can play in developing a model for communities to adopt locally and to enable better protection of those freshwater resources. And then there are two additional recommended actions here that really are more connected to some of the work that the state is doing and supporting that work. Implementation of the Massachusetts Farmland Action Plan has been a priority of the state, and it's something that the Commission staff have been engaged in supporting more recently. Certainly, agricultural resources here in the region, while they may not be as significant or plentiful as areas in other parts of Massachusetts, they are critical to protect and to ensure that they remain productive. And so that is a recommended action here under natural systems. Updating the ocean management plan. As you all know, we do have an existing ocean management plan. The Commission was engaged in the state's process to develop the state ocean management plan. That is something that they are due to update, and they are reconvening the Ocean Advisory Council, and it will make sense for the region to take a look at the ocean management plan kind of following that state process. And under built systems, there are 7 recommended actions. A number of them have to do with climate and coastal resiliency, so advancing actions that reduce risk in the coastal floodplain. Builds on a lot of the work that we've done to develop model resiliency bylaws and regulations, as well as work we've done with all 15 towns to advance low-lying roads and development of conceptual designs to address those vulnerable low-lying roads. It definitely ties to the recommended action here to support local climate action planning and implementation. So advancing some of those kind of regional models at the local level and supporting implementation of those efforts is part of that. Also work to help communities develop local climate action plans. So work that the Commission staff is doing today and will continue to do moving forward. And then also, connected to that is supporting both post-disaster planning initiatives. We know that despite local and regional planning and significant action to address some of our vulnerabilities related to climate change, we are going to continue to be a vulnerable region, and we must kind of think critically about supporting those post-disaster planning initiatives and considering what our priorities are, especially around redevelopment in the event of a climate-related disaster. What those priorities are and how we're going to think about that moving forward. Developing a regional capital plan is something you might recall is in the 2018 regional policy plan. So staff have developed a framework and an approach to potentially initiating kind of a planning process around a regional capital plan. This is something that we'll continue to prioritize in this regional policy plan. It can help us to, identify collaborations and efficiencies, not only across town boundaries, but in working with our state and federal partners to advocate for and support the infrastructure needs that we have across the region. Supporting efforts for collaboration and waste diversion on waste diversion and disposal options. I know you are very familiar with the work that the Commission did in collaboration with county staff, and we will continue to ensure that the data, information, and recommendations from all of that work is available and integrated into ongoing collaborative efforts around waste diversion and disposal. We also, our most recent plan, the Cape Cod Vision Zero Action Plan, supporting implementation of the recommendations in that plan will be critical to supporting pedestrian and bicyclist and kind of broader transportation safety across the Cape. So it is a priority over the coming years. And then finally, probably less needs to be said here, as you are all very familiar that there is a great need to continue to support replacement of the Bourne and Sagamore bridges. So will be a priority as it has been, but certainly a priority and recommended action of this regional policy plan. And finally, under community systems, there are 7 recommended actions under this section. The first 3 you see there along the top are really actions that the Commission has been prioritizing and will continue to prioritize, continuing to expand our understanding of underrepresented histories, as well as supporting new and updated historic inventories are critical to, gaining a true understanding and a comprehensive understanding of our past, and ensuring that that is reflected and supporting kind of how we plan for our future. Maintaining the comprehensive economic development strategy, which was recently completed in 2024, is something that we will continue to do. That is critical to maintaining the economic development district designation in the region and accessing those federal programs through the Economic Development Administration. And then finally, these last 4 that you see are really tied more to our housing challenges. Encouraging local regulations that protect historic and archaeological resources, not only ties to cultural heritage and community design, but also enables us to consider how we might reuse some of our historic buildings to support some of our housing challenges. And so that concept of redevelopment and reuse is integrated heavily in this recommended action. Supporting zoning changes for greater housing opportunities really builds on the work of the regional housing strategy and implementing those local zoning recommendations, which many are being pursued at the local level. Supporting implementation of the Affordable Homes Act, particularly as it relates to seasonal communities and the ability of our communities to take advantage of the programs that will be available through that seasonal communities designation. And then finally, convening a funding and financing working group for housing initiatives. So much work has went into developing recommendations and frameworks for different types of programs that could be adopted at the local and regional level, and much of that work is ongoing. But identifying which funding and financing mechanisms are most appropriate to support those different types of strategies is something that the Commission can't necessarily do on our own, but we can certainly convene the appropriate stakeholders to have that discussion and try to advance some of those initiatives. And then finally, I'll just touch on a couple of other areas of change. Certainly, as we always do, we will continue to review our thresholds, what trigger kind of development to come through our regulatory program. And then there are a number of other kind of potential areas for change, technical guidance and mapping. So certainly we continue to update mapping with the best available data to support our understanding of the resources, infrastructure, and other assets in the region. And then the technical guidance primarily consists of our technical bulletins. Those amendments are underway, and we've been working with the RPP subcommittee to review amendments to the technical guidance to be consistent with the regional policy plan. So those are documents that will be available as well to support implementation of this regional policy plan. And then finally, Christy touched on this already, but public comment is being accepted through September 24th. There are a number of ways to submit comments, and you can see those here on the screen. There's a form that's located on our website, and all of this information is available on the website you see here for the RPP update. And with that, happy to turn it over to Christy for any final remarks.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, Chloe. So what we've shared with you is a very brief overview of the chapters of the plan, the kind of significant changes that have occurred within that first draft. I will let you know that we are working on a section that will be included with the ordinance that we submit to you that's kind of a what's new in this plan, so that there will be an articulation of those changes and easy for someone to identify the major areas where we've made some amendments. So with that, thanks for your attention this morning. We're happy to answer questions or take any feedback that you might have now, or certainly after you've had a chance to digest all of this, and we will be back before you. So.
Yes,
thank you.
I think that would be a good thing. Any questions, comments?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I think that the changes that have been made and the new initiatives all make a great deal of sense.
I agree.
And I'm glad to see, a lot of attention on some of these newer initiatives, particularly things dealing with water quality.
Yeah.
I think providing help to municipalities on bylaws to protect ponds, other freshwater bodies. I think that kind of assistance can be incredibly helpful to our towns. One of the things I'm curious about, Christy, is many towns have been talking about, pesticide fertilizer regulations, other sort of municipal bylaws to help deal with nutrient loading from these types of practices. Are we, through the commission, getting involved in that, providing support for that work, or is that something that a town has to handle on their own?
So, yep, happy to respond to that. That's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner Forrest. We have been engaged in these discussions, and as you recall, we do have a fertilizer bylaw that was drafted a number of years ago for consumption kind of more broadly, and these issues are certainly coming up again, and I do think that the Commission can continue to be support for the communities as they look to adopt either more stringent regulations or address pesticides and fertilizers, especially as impacts to water bodies are addressed. So yes, I think that we can continue to be a resource there.
That's terrific. That's great. The aquifer protection measures that have been spoken to broadly, I think, make a great deal of sense. There was a time when the commission received, or its prior version received, a significant, let's put it this way, years ago, a significant amount of federal and state money to help with that effort. And I think to some degree, any kind of concentrated attention assisting towns and better managing and identifying threats to water quality, particularly in zone 2s. I think to some degree, at least I've noticed at the local level, we sort of drifted away from really looking at uses and activities that could potentially be threatening or create problems in zone 2s, or revisiting some of these areas. So I'm intrigued. I guess what I'm saying is that at least it's been my observation that that we've, as a region, particularly at the municipal level, we've sort of haven't concentrated as much attention and activity in this area. So I think it's great that the regional policy plan puts in a focus on aquifer health, lens health, and I've been impressed with the towns, at least on the lower Cape, Chatham, Brewster, Orleans, looking at the Monomoy lens and finding ways to collaborate, particularly in terms of water supply management, making sure that there's significant or sufficient effort to be cautious about drawing down on water resources, particularly during the times of drought. So I just want to commend the commission for focusing on the aquifer side of things and looking at health and support for efforts to protect our sole source aquifer, particularly the individual lenses here on Cape Cod, because I think what's happening is there's been sort of a varied track record in looking at this. So I think from the commission's perspective, having a support and some effort sustained here at the regional level, I think makes a great deal of sense. But I think overall, I think these new additions, I think, are terrific, and I'm pleased to see what you've done.
I am too, and I also like the fact that you put in finite resource of water, because that has to be underscored 1,000 times. We keep going along here like we are on a big, huge land mass, and I know everybody who comes to visit here wants to live here, and we can't have everybody live here. We just can't. And there's going to be a recognition of that in some areas. Everybody's, you got developers on one side, a crying need, and also how are we going to, you can all come here, but are we going to be able to sustain all of us? And that reality has to be discussed and put out there. And a lot of people see it and they're wondering why it's not being discussed. So I'm glad you added that in there. I'm sure a lot of these things will come up at One Cape. I look forward to further discussions on a lot of this stuff. And we look forward to you coming back with the final results and what we think we should be doing going forward. So great work.
Great, thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, in sitting here, I'm just so greatly impressed with the quality and the professionalism of this presentation. I mean, just the graphics alone is amazing. The talent you have available to you. And of course, underlying it is the work that you put into revising the regional policy plan. So did a great job. It deserves probably more attention from us than we can give it. But as Sheila says, we'll be at the same time as you're doing this, you're also planning for the One Cape Summit. But the challenge really is to make sure that when individual decisions are made by planning boards and ZBAs and conservation commissions, that they refer to the regional policy plan,
Right.
that it's consistent throughout the Cape. I know that's a big challenge. People go off depending on their, the changes in the boards and so on. But this should certainly serve as a template for protecting the resources that we have on the Cape. And I think that, members of the commission, including myself, when there are decisions that come before the selectmen or the councilors, before the ZBAs and so on, that the members of the commission would remind them of the regional policy plan and make sure their decisions are consistent with
they
what you
refer
guys
to
have
it.
done. Thank you.
Okay. We're all set.
Great.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for your time. We appreciate that presentation. We have a lot going on today. Okay, moving along, we have another update from our information technology department. And please introduce yourself,
Of course.
Mr. Travis.
My name is Billy Travers. I am the IT director for the county, and I have a presentation as well. It's kind of out of character for me and prepare for a drastic drop off in graphic quality, but
That's okay.
more of
Yeah.
talking points here. Let me see if I can.
You're at home with you then.
And we are go. Almost. Key is to be patient with these things.
Well, since you're the IT guy, I guess. You should avoid
You should, yes. And this is exactly the reason why I tend not to do presentations,
Right.
because inevitably
Yeah,
something occurs like
you
this.
show you. Okay.
So anyway, here's some basic slides here leading off. These actually are what we're going to be having in rotation up the hill after this for the open house at our table. So just basic introductory slides that I can more or less breeze through. People in this room generally know what an information technology department does: technical support, network design. We get into strategic planning, and of course, cybersecurity is a thing as well. Next up, we have just the basics. All familiar: virtual meeting setup, software, computer stuff, as people call it sometimes.
Right.
Network design and building of networks and infrastructure. This is a bit more fun for us. Don't get to do too much of it, but we get into high-speed internet connectivity for county and towns, and been participating in some grant-funded projects out on the Outer Cape there. And fiber optic wide area networks are all within our purview. Project planning, of course, comes with the territory. All interesting projects require planning and development behind them. Cybersecurity. This is a no-brainer here. Assessing cybersecurity posture, education of staff, backup recovery, etc. Why? We provide regional IT services. Is to share common practices and systems across all of our customers, keep things uniform, best practice oriented, keep pace with current technologies, not too far, don't want to be on the cutting edge or the bleeding edge, as it were. Kind of stay in the safe zone of staying ahead of the curve, but not too far. Implement consistent security policies. That's also obvious to most people.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah. And then efficiency is a huge thing here. And this is something, after this, I have a little brief timeline of the department's growth here and what we've done over the years. And this is kind of harkens back to what we did initially at the county with all the different departments doing separate things and getting into something more uniform and collaborative. And then who do we support? You probably know some of these people.
Mm-hmm.
course. Then we have list of the county departments and our primary customers at present. And then we can get into the timeline. So 2005, IT department was formed, and we consolidated IT operations across all the departments. Everybody had their own contractors and things and their own systems. We centralized email at that point. And then 2006, these are just notable kind of interesting achievements over the years. Definitely things went on in between and throughout these. Deployed fiber optic network on the campus here. Eventually that expanded out to some of our satellite offices. And then we centralized all the servers that were scattered about the campus here into a data center. And I use that in quotes because the original data center was a repurposed bathroom in the old jail up the hill.
Right.
So it wasn't ideal, but it was a secure building for the most part.
Probably the only repurposed bathroom.
Yes. I think that's a record of some sort.
Kind of plaque.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's actually in the back of what is now the lab there, the old gymnasium. But
Wow.
yeah. Anywho, so 2008, we got into formalizing the support process with a ticketing system, deployed enterprise Wi-Fi, which was not cutting edge at the time, but it was when wireless internet was becoming. We were able to secure it properly and manage it properly across all the buildings. In 2009, we got into voice over IP. With our phone system and deployed that for all the state trial courts as well. Then interesting thing that happened around that time was a lightning strike, and we lost a lot of equipment. Insurance covered it. It was a lightning strike. Actually, it affected the systems in the bathroom, so it wasn't that safe. It turned out after all.
So we're not going to hide there at a.
No. We're getting out of the data center business altogether. 2010, virtualization takes hold, and that's when that's basically the ability to take one server and put many servers on that one piece of hardware. So you get more efficiency out of that, more flexibility, which was needed at the time. And then in 2011, noteworthy year, was when we started investigating Wellfleet regional services, and that obviously has taken hold since. We had a call center expansion briefly for the phone system. Not sure why I put that in there, but apparently that was a interesting thing. County internet access and network upgrades. This was a year where we started to build in redundancy so that if we lose one internet provider, it fails over to another one, that sort of thing at that level of the network. Then 2013, leadership change. That's when my predecessor left and I took over. Then we had upgrades to various systems that year as well. And then we applied for and got ranked in the top 10 for the Digital County Survey, which is the Center for Digital Government and NACO, which they hold every year. And we usually throw our hat into the ring every chance we get, but sometimes it lines up, sometimes it doesn't. 2014, drafted a strategic IT plan and presented that. And then we started support for Truro and Chatham and Falmouth. Falmouth was a temporary run, but that was the year that began. Then we threw in for another Digital County Survey. 2015, data center upgrades. That's when we moved into the Open Cape data center and expanded our systems in there. And at the same time, we started hosting email and phone systems for towns. And this was just barely ahead of the whole cloud curve there, where things started to shift in that direction. And had a good run at that. And another Digital County Survey. And then we got a Public Technology Institute award for that setup, actually, for the regional email and phone system. But then 2016 kind of saw the writing on the wall and budget constraints. We had to pick a path. We were kind of hybridizing between the cloud and the on-prem stuff. And we decided that it was best to just steadily shift into the cloud direction. Then let's see here, 2017, we got a new regional services contract framework, which has served us well over the years. And then IT assessment formed for Provincetown. We started the new framework, I should add, was basically where we had the gateway for services. Before we would engage in any sort of contract, we would do an assessment and line up the needs of the customer with what we're able to do and either proceed with it or kind of further align with them, make sure we're on the same page there. And so that was a big shift in how we were doing things. So Provincetown had an assessment done. And after the assessment, they could either, take that and run with it, go in a different direction, or contract with us further. We started to roll out cloud-based phones at the time, which that was a bit way too ahead of the curve. A lot of people told me, but it worked out for the best. Did some extensive testing on it, and everything worked out fine eventually. And we were able to ditch our old phone system. Then we have an IT assessment for the town of Harwich, and we began support with the town. Cloud migrations. We then, as I mentioned before, we started hosting email and phones for a couple of towns, and now we have to kind of practice what we preach, and we have to recommend that to the towns. So we got the towns that we were hosting out into the cloud as well from our systems, and we started turning off all the things in the data center. And note the year, it's 2019, which was some time ago, and it turns out it's not exactly a simple thing to turn down a data center.
Right.
Oh, I just lost my connection. All right, I'm back. Let's see. Slides line up. There we go. All right. Wow. If it can go wrong, it will, huh? We got into an IT assessment for the town of Orleans, which was cybersecurity focused. And forgive me, I'm rushing. I just know time's a factor here.
Thank you.
So county transitions to remote work for reasons I think we can all recall. And it was relatively seamless just because we had, fortunately, coincidentally, we obviously didn't see this coming, but we had moved to the cloud-based phones and things prior to that. Then we start rolling out multi-factor authentication, which everybody knows and loves now. 2021, IT assessment performed for Bourne, and we begin support there. And at various levels, that expands over time to what it is now. 2022, cloud migration for the town of Harwich. So they went full into with phones and everything after we were kind of the guinea pigs in it. And next up, we have 2023. We expanded our services in Bourne, and we got the IT policies and procedures off the ground and presented. And then we started the regional cybersecurity training program, and we rolled that out to Harwich and in Bourne at the time. And now we handle Wellfleet and Harwich and Bourne. And I think we were talking about doing True at one point too. Then we submitted and got a Digital Counties Survey Award as well after that. Oh, I skipped a bullet point. I participated in a panel at the Digital Government Summit on AI, which is very fascinating. And actually also jumped into a few of the states' the AI task force for government. That was it was very interesting to witness. We got some good insight from that going forward. So then 2025 is punctuated by the cyber incident in Bourne, but fortunately that expedited their migration process as well. So we're able to kind of keep that momentum going in that direction. And then we're basically at present times now. And I'm sure there's a lot I've kind of glossed over there, but that's just the general feeling of it. And a key takeaway here is that just going the cloud route, especially, is really kind of speaking to the efficiency levels and also making our customers kind of conform to the same scope of services. We're able to do more with less. So we have 11 and a half, and admittedly 0.5 there is a couple of interns that just kind of rounded to in 2015. And then 10 years later, we have 9, and we have a lower budget now, and we're making quintuple the revenue. And without really trying too hard. So going forward, we have a few interesting challenges, and these were strategic initiatives that we had in the budget, but we weren't able to fit in this fiscal year. But we're going to come up with some creative ways to get parts of them through. The first one is the regional services assessment, and it's obvious that there's supply and demand issues on that front. So I would really like to sort of take it apart and see how it could be rebuilt better, more efficiently, and what should be done different, if anything. We might look at some grant funding opportunities as we have in the past, but we'll keep at that. But then there's also some key aspects of it I think we could probably take out and work on ourselves, like rate adjustments and smaller ticket items that we can use to improve it. Managed services pilot, this is kind of goes hand in hand, and this is something we might look at grant funding for, but this is basically wanting to get into outsourcing basic support to free us up for more advanced project work and let us scale with supply and demand. So if we take on an extra town, it would just mean scaling up the service provider. And there's a number of them out there, and they have been getting better reviews than they have in the past. So I'm optimistic about it. Then on the cybersecurity and AI front, this is a brave new world here. We're getting into cybersecurity. I think I've spoken to you before about information security being the key here. So it's no longer about controlling the front door or the gates of the kingdom. It's about classifying what data is where and where it's going and how you can prevent it from ending up in certain places. And the enabling thing there is AI, for better or worse, because that lets you do things without people having to do them. So that kind of bridges the gap there between having 24/7 security operations centers and having some level of intelligence that's short of that, but will get you a long way towards it. Then AI services and licensing. This is something we've kind of proceeded with whatever funding we could muster. We're renegotiating a Microsoft contract right now, and we're backing off in certain areas in hopes that we can free up funding to invest more on that side of things. And we have a number of pilot programs running right now where we have some chat bots and things. We've been pushing out Copilot licensing for testing. We did a survey maybe 8 months ago, getting staff feedback on their usage of AI for work, because it was one of those things that people were using it whether we knew it or not. So just good to be aware of it. And we did a follow-up survey not too long ago, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, and to get the kind of trend line there. And it's pretty interesting, the results. We have the people that have been using it extensively are even more into it, and we have the group that that wanted nothing to do with it. Well, there wasn't a group, forgive me, there wasn't a group that didn't want anything to do with it. There was kind of, I have no idea what this is group in the middle of things. And there's a new kind of faction of individuals that really don't like it and don't want it, which is pretty fascinating. And there's environmental factors in there too. So people are conscious of electricity costs and things like that, and environmental impacts, which is it's from our perspective just good to be aware of that. People, that's their mindset. So it's just will be an interesting field to navigate, but it's certainly not going away. It's baked into almost everything these days. I think I went through this a little bit too fast, but
You did fine.
okay.
No, you did, because we don't have much time.
We don't.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Can you go back to a couple of slides, the one that had the dollar figures
Oh, sure.
on it?
This one?
Right there. That's good. No, I just want to commend you for being able to make, significant changes, gains on the revenue side
Oh,
in the work on that, and to be able to be nimble, as an organization. My question to you is, going forward, are there towns that would like to be part of our system, but for some reason we haven't been able to hook up with them?
yes. There have been there's been requests that haven't been outright denied, but even Born at the time was just hold on for a minute, and we were trying to get additional staffing at the time, and that's why I was interested in the managed services pilot there.
I think that's important. What you've shown is that the services, they don't completely pay for themselves, but
No,
they pay a substantial amount of what we're doing,
they do.
which I think is important. What I'd like to suggest is, because we don't have the time now,
Mhm.
but at a future meeting,
Mhm.
we talk about this particular issue of how do we get the other towns that are interested in being
Right.
part of the system, how do we get them in? What's our game plan?
Mm.
I think it's something that's worth talking about particularly before we get into the budget season.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be a good timing.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think, you definitely have like an array of services. You don't have to be, sign up and we're going to do all of your IT, but you
Mhm.
can go in there and help towns
Yeah.
with certain things they need, integrating
Precisely.
systems, getting
Right,
onto
right.
the cloud, all of that.
Mhm.
And I don't know if everybody really understands that is, you're sort of
Yeah, I
like a
mean,
little store there that has different things you can choose. So
yeah, there's certain boundaries to it, I suppose, but
Yeah.
things that we don't want to get into without an end game. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. But the AI is, I'm one of those that I don't want it. I don't know why. And the thing is, it's here, and really none of us had any choice. It's not like we have a choice,
right, yeah.
and that's not good.
That sounds kind of dystopian when you put it that way.
It
But it's not
does,
far
it
from the
does,
truth.
we're doomed. But anyway, good thing AI is here to just run things when we're all gone. Anything else, Ron?
Yeah, just, whenever you're here, I always ask you the same question, so I might as well be consistent.
Yes.
We're pretty much, as much as is reasonably possible, protected against malware, against ransomware, and so on.
And as long as we
Yes.
guard against everyone's stupidity.
That's the point of the training program, is that the human factor ends up being the weakest link in the entire chain. Unfortunately, just how it is. So, and it's points to good things about the technology itself, because that part of it is, people are pretty well on top of it. There's some interesting things in the future. We'll see what happens with quantum computing and things, but part of our strategy there is to outsource it to bigger providers, because that's not something that any organization can do themselves internally.
So do you have had occasion to notify people of some new emerging threat, new attack or something like that, and then
Yes.
spread the word out?
Yes, we frequently do that. We have our the regional IT directors group, and we have it sometimes we put out the notice and sometimes we get the notice, but we'll have a notice about a malicious email that made it through someone's filter, and we go through the 6 or so other tenants we have access to in towns that we assist and block it all from there.
Mhm.
So it definitely is a constant level of communication required, and we're always looking at security bulletins and things too. So
we've been through many IT budgets. I went through 12 at the assembly and several now, and I know Sheila's gone through a few too. And for a while there, I'm talking about before you came in, it was an issue, constant issue. But the fact that, as Mark mentions, that you managed to come in under budget and get new revenue sources, it's a tremendous.
It's a challenge, and it's a very odd thing for an internal services department too, and that's hence the need for the assessment, because there isn't a direct parallel or another model that we can easily copy or say if we're doing it right or wrong. So,
Right.
but it's always interesting to be in uncharted territory. And also, I want to give a shout out to the IT staff for towing the line on all this stuff over the years, and especially with the cyber incident and everything. It was a wild amount of additional work for a couple months there, but they've always been, the flexibility is indicative of their flexibility, I suppose.
Right. Well, I appreciate the ongoing cyber training, because I mean, there's things that are happening, and I can see this is what it is that I'm seeing, and now I know how to go about it, but and recognize it even more.
Universally
And,
applicable.
As I said, I remember when I walked in here in 2008, that's just when everybody was getting onto Wi-Fi and all that. And I said, "We don't have any Wi-Fi here." And our former administrator, several administrators ago, who was a longtime administrator, said, "We need that for. That's not
Really?
good. That's security for the courts. We can't have that in this building."
Yeah,
Within the year, it was happening because everybody was walking in asking for that.
Mhm.
But anyway, we've come a long way.
Indeed.
You're doing a good job.
Hey, thank you. It's been a
Thank
fun
you.
journey.
All right.
Where we at?
All right. We look forward to seeing you around budget, right before budget.
Indeed.
And talk
Be
about
happy
this in
to.
more detail.
Perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
And last but not least, no, it's not the last. It's one more thing after that. Older adults presentation.
Good morning.
Considering we're one of the oldest counties in the country.
Invite some of the Healthy Aging Cape Cod leaders.
Yes,
up
please
here
do. Have everybody introduce
to join
themselves
me.
and your positions. Yeah, bring that chair up, please. Thank you for your patience. It's been a long one. Hopefully you've learned something, and we're aging in close. Yes, we all are, unfortunately. Okay. You can introduce your group, Mandy,
So
and yourself.
good
please.
morning. I'm Mandy Speakman, Deputy Director for Barnstable County Department of Human Services. And I just want to acknowledge someone who's not here with us today, Eva Orman.
Mhm.
She's our Older Adult Social Services Program Manager. Unfortunately, a pre-planned vacation overlapped with today, but I wanted to make sure that she was present in spirit with us in the room.
Right.
And I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
And I'm Laura Roskus. I'm co-chair of Healthy Aging Cape Cod, and I work with Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands.
Hi, I'm Andrea Scarpellini, Food Access Coordinator with Cape Cod Cooperative Extension. I'm also one of the co-chairs of one of the work groups.
I'm Sharon Tenstead, another co-chair of the group, and I am co-chair of the Council on Aging Board in Brewster.
Oh,
okay. And can I share my screen, please? which we have slides for, which we will efficiently cruise through so we can all get to the open house.
And this is what we're going to be talking about is the older adult social services navigator program. So it's expanded or it has existed.
You showing up on here?
No.
Seems to be a little delay.
There we go.
All
All right, awesome. Okay,
IT stuff.
so
We have
we've
the IT guy here.
Yeah, I know.
Help.
Yeah.
So we've done our introductions, and as Sheila said, Healthy Aging Cape Cod has been around for quite some time, was launched in 2017, pre-COVID. And so post-COVID and kind of coinciding with my entry into the county government, we were able to reinvigorate. Although Healthy Aging Cape Cod has had the same mission throughout, which is to allow reduce duplication of services, align services so that our residents can age in place regardless of income. And just so you're not listening to me talk the whole time, I want to offer Sharon the opportunity to talk about our some of our demographics.
I mean, as you know, and you've already acknowledged, we are one of the oldest counties. And I want to make 2 points about this slide. One is, as you notice in the bar graph at the bottom, the orange bars show where we're at in relation to the rest of the state. Clearly, we are an aging population on Cape, and it is increasing from decade to decade. So even though in Massachusetts, there's a projected 59% increase in the over 60 population by 2030, you see a 44% for the Cape, but look at the percentages and the comparison across the decades on Cape versus the rest of Massachusetts.
Right.
Okay. The other thing that I want to point out, and I think it becomes more apparent in the next slide, if you look at this map and you look at the dark blue on the map, you can see that we already are quite old.
Wow.
And by 2030, we're going to be even older, particularly the mid, lower outer Cape ages faster than the rest of the state. But one thing I want to point out about these data is that these data are based on the U.S. Census, which is done every 10 years. And we rely at the local level on our town data, our town census. Massachusetts has the benefit of every town, every municipality in the state doing an annual town census. So we can track this year by year as opposed to decade to decade. Right. And I'll just make a point of Brewster. It shows us at less than 50% in 2020. Well, I can tell you that since 2020, we have been over 50% consistently. We're kind of leveled off around 51, 52%, but we're staying there. And yes, it's likely to increase. So we have a very old population here. And so I think it really underscores the importance of what Healthy Aging Cape Cod is all about and what we're doing.
And lest we all envision the stereotypical, I guess, negative visions of what that demographic change will mean, we are really focusing and exploring on the opportunities that our demographic change will mean for our area. And so, as you know, earlier this year, Barnstable County entered the AARP Age Friendly Network of Communities, which is nationwide, and the Massachusetts Dementia Friendly Network of Communities, which is overseen by MCOA in Massachusetts. And we will be soon working on our action plan, and all of the work we're doing is within this framework of the 8 domains of livability. And so part of the beauty of this framework is that we get to decide as a community, what are our priorities? What do we have the resources to focus on? And we can be nimble, and we can decide, what we need to address according to priorities and resources as time goes by. But we have this tested framework, and we know that when a community is able to address these 8 domains of livability, we are creating a more positive aging experience for everybody. And we're all aging from the time we're born. So we're not just talking about the stereotypical elderly person. We're all doing, aging is so cool. We're all doing it.
I just have to say, when I see these numbers go up, I also say to myself, that's a lot of brain power coming here.
Absolutely.
Because it's retired people with professions and, to be like some people we shall not name and say, you can't come here unless, you have $50,000. Well, you can't come here unless you promise you're going to get on this board and help us solve something. Anyway, there is opportunity there.
Great
I think
opportunity.
so.
Let me jump in here for a minute because that statistics is one of my favorite pet projects because, really have to analyze it. You talk about the percentage of population that's over 60, but you really have to look at the percentage increase in that population, whether the percentage increase in that population is different than the percentage increase in the rest of Massachusetts, because not only are we getting more people, older people, we're also getting less younger people.
Right.
Families are being pushed out. So we're left with, say, the remnant population of older people. In Chatham, where I live, the population of the town has not really increased that much. It's just shifted. It shifted from young families to older people. And of course, you have less younger people to take care of the older people. So that's something.
It's a dilemma.
It is a dilemma, but and I just to throw it aside, I became aware of the cost of let's say year-round care for an older person. They need 24 hours, even just because they have limited mobility. It can be $30 or $40 an hour, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
If you can find someone to do it.
Right.
If you can find somebody to do it, because
Exactly.
those people to do it are also being pushed on. Anyway, that's just.
Yes, that's our comment. Sorry.
Thank you.
Go on, because we do have time constraints. I'm sorry.
So this slide just gives you a quick map of all of the communities in Massachusetts who are in the AARP Age-Friendly Network. And I wasn't able to find a similar map for dementia-friendly Massachusetts, but there was a word cloud. So in that word cloud are all the Massachusetts communities in the dementia-friendly network. And as we had previously discussed when we brought the resolution to you, this is these processes are aligned, so we're pursuing and supporting age and dementia-friendly work. So what have we done in the last year or so? We have really reinvigorated the Healthy Aging Cape Cod Coalition. Right now we have 56 individuals who are consistently participating in our efforts, and they represent about 38 organizations, and that is geographically spread out across Cape Cod. And that's really important to us, that we have some geographic equity and that we're touching all areas of the Cape. And including the Wampanoag tribe. So traditionally we think of the 4 subregions of Cape Cod, but we want to make sure that we are including the tribal area as well. And we had 3 really great trainings this past year. Sage Care, which is a national organization, was able to provide us with training on how to better serve LGBTQ older adults. And we were able to work with the Gerontological Society of America in their Reframe Aging training, which is based on research, and it's become an evidence-based practice. How do we reduce ageism? How do we reframe our thoughts? Because we all grew up in this society where we see black balloons and joke birthday cards, and we constantly do it to ourselves. We minimize ourselves as we age. And so we are actively all working, all of us, to reframe the way we think about aging and then and implement that in the work that we're doing.
I was at the Wellfleet Market and there was a birthday card that said, "Happy birthday, another year closer to the grave." And I said, that seems like an Irish.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Sounds very Irish.
So, yeah. So that's a great example. And also this year, even before we formally entered the networks, but certainly it's becoming part of our action plan, are the 2 work groups we have focused on volunteerism, which, Sheila, your point of the talent that we have here in our area is critical. And digital equity, digital access, which is impactful in so many ways. And this year we will be exploring, or we are talking about, a 3rd perhaps work group focused on older adult housing, which I'm happy to say is really getting a lot of kind of airtime in the network. We have other partner organizations starting to come to us, so we feel like the conversation is ripe for having. I want to point out the wealth of talent we have on our team here. So I want to hand it over to Andrea to speak to that for a moment.
Okay, well, this is us. We are the Healthy Aging Cape Cod staff and leadership, and we are extremely grateful and blessed to have the leadership of Mandy and Eva leading this initiative and really moving it along so well and so quickly and comprehensively. We take and not only is it this leadership that really helps move this project forward, but we are joined by a lot of community partners who are very diverse in their experience and their talent. And we work together to act as kind of like a hub of information and resources and connecting all the different pieces of aging together so that anybody can come together and seek us out and get the information that they're looking for and the support. And we also are using this talent, the partners, to make sure that we aren't duplicating efforts, that we are being as efficient as possible, and we are supporting each other. And also, I think just trying to figure out when it makes the most sense to act in a regional way.
Right on. Thank you. And when we talk about acting in a regional way, we have Laura's a representative of Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. So she's going to speak to you a little bit about kind of the synergy of the county working and being in alignment with state and other regional efforts.
So it's what Mandy and Eva have done really in pulling us all together. So many people from so many different sectors and from across the Cape is, you had said, Mandy, that we can choose what to work on, but there wasn't a we. Now there is a we to actually make that choice. Right. And it's really important for Elder Services as a regional agency to have a counterpart because, you know, we're the people who manage and deliver all of the programs funded through the Older Americans Act and through the Executive Office of Aging and Independence. But that leaves a lot of stuff out that we can't respond to quickly because we're doing all this stuff. And so when we get a lot of information from being in people's homes, managing their care, from our needs surveys, but a lot of that is excess that we can't deal with as an agency. Mm-hmm. So here's a place where we can find people who can also think regionally about these issues. The other piece I wanted just to say is she's talking about when we had the chance to participate in the Reimagine Aging 3030 brainstorming planning process. A lot of people in Boston forget about the Cape. So a lot of times funding opportunities come up through the Executive Office of Aging and Independence that are given to some of the ASAPs, like us, Aging Services Access Point, but not to us. And so anytime we can become involved in statewide processes and get people from the state down here to experience, to know better what we're going through here and the changes happening here, the more chances we might have to be considered for that kind of funding. One example of this was when the Massachusetts Broadband Institute was putting out their RFP for implementation grants money, which eventually the feds ripped out, but they specifically targeted older adults in Barnstable County to receive a piece of that funding.
Right, and that's the benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
So talking about funding, this initiative got an influx of energy and capacity with ARPA funding that came through the Executive Office of Aging Independence and a couple other small grants we were able to secure. So that funding is phasing out, which we knew it would. Always through this process, we're looking at sustainability. And so the governance that was reinvigorated and reaffirmed a couple years ago is based on the really successful model of the RSAC, the Regional Substance Addiction Network. And that model taps into our partners and stakeholders. So the county staff can act as an administrative support and foundation, but really relies on the partnership of other organizations and volunteers to provide the people power to do it. And then through that, you identify priorities and work groups. And if, as a community, there is a priority and the people power to do it, then we can help administratively support it. And in that way, with very little funding, sometimes no funding, we're able to keep the work going during the dry period. So we do continue to pursue sustainable funding. But we were grateful that we were able to piece together funding to get us through a couple of years that allowed us to really get back in line and reset the foundation. And so this is just another quick slide. I don't know if Sharon, if you have any other.
I mean, I think the issue here has already been identified as the number of older adults increases. It offers a lot of opportunities, but it offers some challenges as well. To meet the needs of the very old. There are several cohorts of adults in the older population on Cape, as we've mentioned. And, you know, this is self-explanatory. Commissioner Bergstrom, you've already mentioned the issues here. We don't have as many younger families and workers as we need because of, and it's highly related to the housing affordability and attainability issue. So this is going to be the big issue going forward, I think, for all municipalities on Cape as well as the county. It will be challenging as the percent of older adults increases and the percent of younger adults and families decreases.
We need a gray revolution again here on Cape Cod.
Well, so having, focused or mentioned, funding winding down challenges, we wanted to kind of wrap up with some positive, like, what are we doing and where are we going from here?
Right. So in just a couple of weeks, we're going to have our age and dementia friendly retreat. I think we're planning for about 60 people.
Roughly, yep.
And it's an exciting agenda to look really at those working areas that we're involved in now, look at the potential for the older adult housing, and see if something else also rises to the surface, because it was a very organic process when we came across the volunteerism and the digital equity. That's just where the energy was. And a gray revolution, yeah, but also we have to figure out how to take care of each other. And that's really a creative problem, And so then after we get the input from that retreat, leadership will work on a more formalized action plan and begin that process. After the new year, we're really excited. We're going to be holding Age Tech Exploratory, we're calling it, which is really inspired by AARP's research into the different cohorts of aging and how they use technology differently and what technologies are available to assist and support them. And so this is like a train the trainer kind of event for aging network professionals, and it'll be co-sponsored by Healthy Aging Cape Cod, the Cape Cod Senior Resource Group, and the Cape Cod Technology Council and AARP.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And so,
Well, go ahead.
Last slide, just as we leave you today, thinking about, the bigger 30,000 foot view of the work that we're doing. We want our community to be able to have, now I've forgotten the term because it was new to me. We know lifespan has increased. We now want to help increase health span. We want to be able to for ourselves and our loved ones and all of our neighbors, create the opportunities to stay in our community where we want to be and do the things we love to do in a healthy and safe way for as long as possible. And part of that is a mind shift. Part of it is working together as a community and truly creating age and dementia-friendly communities, which is, if you look at the Healthy Aging Cape Cod logo, is creating livable communities. And not said there is for everyone. This is for everyone from birth to our eldest person. So thank you for taking so much time today. I know it's a busy day, but we appreciate the opportunity.
We thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to hearing more about your training, I would call it, that you're coming together. And, people do age well here for a long time until they don't. And that's when you need the doctors, and that's when you need the specialists. And that is also a difficult thing, especially because of our demographics. And you're out the Outer Cape here, you got a long haul. So there's a lot of things, just like in the last 3 presentations we've had, and they all connect in many ways. So
I could just make one. Oh,
please.
I have a question, and one of the things that I'm curious about is, many communities are trying to figure out creative ways to provide better housing arrangements for our older residents, particularly as we see the 80-90 population growing, and we're dealing with more with dementia and so forth. I think there's a desire and an interest in developing what I would say more affordable assisted living type arrangements. I think there's a huge need out there, but there's no one really speaking to it or showing examples of models of how communities or others have really done it. Years ago, with this board of county commissioners supported, and was involved in helping promote a project out in Bourne at the old county complex out there. And I think but for the county leadership, I'm not sure something like that. That's a place where, many people have been able to take advantage of it. But this is a part of the community that, but for us, it's not going to really get much discussion. So I think, this is just me, but I think the more you can help identify models or approaches where communities have been able to successfully provide more affordable assisted living arrangements to facilitate them, whether it's making land available or making other resources available. In this case, the county made land available. But because I think unless we can provide examples and talk about this, and particularly your group, it's not going to really enter the housing conversation. I go to so many housing meetings and everybody's talking about workforce housing, housing for all these other folks. But I know in a number of communities, what gets talked about at the coffee shop or at the gym is this issue. Grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, how do I get them from that transition from a single family house into an assisted living situation that doesn't cost a fortune? Because a lot of the assisted living facilities, they do a great job, but they're catered to a different market. And it's not a market that we see in our communities, or at least enough of. I mean, a lot of our seniors, a lot of our elders are not on the high income front. They're not hugely affluent. But if you look at the folks that are filling up a lot of these places, it's the affluent senior that's getting housed, while the low to moderate income senior, which is a substantial portion of the Cape's population, that they don't enter the conversation, but there's a huge need there. So I'm hopeful that Barnstable County can play a role in helping better understand this need and identify examples and tools that can be used to facilitate more support for these kinds of housing initiatives, because we're not doing enough and we need to do more. So that's one thing that I'll put out there and leave you with, that we need help on this. And the other thing is the workforce shortages in our municipalities. It's getting really bad. All right. So our older folks have talent, they have brain power, they have resources. I think the extent to which your efforts can be focused on how do we train a cadre of, maybe it's not full-time workforce, but part-timers, people that can fill in, help us out. Because if you go to each municipality's website right now, and I do this quite a bit, you'll see the number of employment listings, the number of postings is huge. All right. And I know that we have people that maybe they can't work full-time, but part-time is something that's an option. And we have a lot of folks that are in this cohort, this demographic, that can offer a lot. So those are my parting. And so you got parting stuff for us.
Yeah.
Those are my parting concerns that I share with you. To the extent that you can help us on those two fronts, I think would be very much appreciated.
Great. Yes, you had a comment.
I just want to close with one final comment. Mandy could have come here by herself today to do this presentation, and we're here to show that we appreciate what the county is doing and the support we get from the county for our initiative. We are very concerned about the sustainability of this effort, because without the county support, I don't think this group could stay together.
Right.
Honestly.
No.
And we're also very concerned about the lack of funding proceeding with the adult services, EVA's position, program manager position.
Right.
I mean, it's going to go away at the end of December.
Oh, I know. I mean, the money is, we're going to, yeah.
And her position has been super critical because Mandy has many other responsibilities.
Right.
So we're here today to support Mandy.
Make sure we don't
To
leave Mandy.
recognize what the county is doing and to say, we need the county to keep this initiative going.
Well, we understand that, and I think we're committed to this effort. It's part of our community. So, and a huge part of our community. So it's not something to be ignored. So I don't think we're going away. Ron, you had
Just
a final comment.
a follow-up on what Mark said. You know, if you go back 40 years around the Cape, people would stay in their homes until their family basically convinced them that they had to go to a nursing home because it was no longer able to take care of them. Since then, people have started to transition to these, they call it assisted living, but I wonder how much assistance they actually get. I mean, you're talking about condos for the restricted to older people, right? And there's a purpose for it, because you can't maintain, you don't want to maintain your house anymore, you don't want to mow the lawn, you have certain things taken care of you, but they are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if a couple moves into one of these, how long are they going to be there? Normally, within a few years, one or two of them is going to need more assistance than can be provided. So from a simple economic standpoint, I think we have to look into this system, this transition system, see where it's working and where it isn't working. Because, when it first came, the idea of zoning for elderly housing came up. The developers jumped on it because now they could build 10,000 units in a small place. But I'm not so sure that if we looked at it, it would really be the best way of serving the elderly population. I think more assistance to allow people to stay in their homes longer, which is what they want, and the availability of skilled nursing to come in periodically and stuff. So I'm saying this is a multifaceted approach. And you have to look at each individual service that you provide to make life.
But Ron, I'm talking about the folks that can't stay in their homes.
Yeah.
They
really do.
What's happened is the land that's available, the opportunities that are available are being gobbled up by developers, by hedge fund operations that are now in big time in the long-term care business. And they're really going after where the money is. They're making money, and that's what they're trying to do.
And it's going to be money because a lot of this isn't going to be subsidized anymore.
Right. So I'm all in favor of supporting all of the above, helping finding ways to help people, take care of themselves in their homes. I know Elder Services is a resource. There are other resources that do that. The area that I'm worried about is at the end of the day, because I'm looking at what's being developed right now. In the new assisted living facilities that are being developed now, I know that in my neighborhood, none of the folks that live in my neighborhood that need someplace to go will be able to go to some of these places.
Right.
Because it costs $14,000-15,000 a month.
Right.
And if there's a meal plan, there's a,
Well, that-
medication plan.
Oh, yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great.
I'm so sorry Eva's not here because this is an issue that she's been really delving into, and she went to a statewide conference really on aging and housing. And she came back so disappointed. There were no practical models really discussed. And, and so we were really digging into that and looking at that. So I really appreciate both of your comments.
Yeah, no, I'm a selectman in Yarmouth. We're looking at redeveloping repurposing an old middle school. And I would love to have a housing developer or a group like yours come to us and say, this is a model that the town should be thinking about in terms of repurposing this facility. This is a way to deal with this demographic and providing, housing arrangements that really would support them. The reality is that there's no one speaking to the needs of this population. They're basically being ignored. And because the only folks that really want to come down and redevelop these properties are the folks that have the big bucks tailored to the most incredibly affluent among us. And I'm not saying that there isn't a need for that, but there's a segment of the community, the people that have basically lived all their lives or most of their lives on Cape Cod have contributed immensely. Their options are diminishing quickly.
Right.
Well, maybe we can come back in the future after we finish, the retreat we're planning in a couple weeks is the brainstorming for our aged and dementia-friendly action plan. And as I said, housing was a rising priority that we're looking at. So perhaps we'll be able to come back, give you an update on that and continue this conversation.
I'd love to continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. I know it's all volunteer pretty much, and thank you. Thank you guys. Makes our communities run. All right. Okay, moving on, we are now going to discuss and vote on the proposed 2026 ballot question language, creating an elected charter study review commission. And our esteemed administrator, Mr. Dutton, is going to lead.
Well, thank you. And just quickly, this is fairly pro forma. Your two-step process, which you began on at your second meeting in August, was to vote a resolution in support of an elected charter commission. Now your second and final act prior to submission to the elections division is to vote the language of the charter question, and that's what's in front of you right now. And I'll just very quickly read it. It is also spelled out in Chapter 801 of the Acts of 1985, so it's no creativity here. Very straightforward. And it is, shall a charter study commission be created to study the present governmental structure of Barnstable County, to consider and make findings concerning the form of government and make recommendations thereon? ? And that would be the ballot question. So it does require your vote.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the 2026 ballot question language as written and authorize the submission of the question to the Secretary of State.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. We'll roll that ball a little further.
So item E.
Item E is about the supplemental budget appropriation for shared regional housing.
You got
I'm sorry.
You missed the most important one.
I did. The most important one. We're gonna take a
So,
look at you.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
I
Dutton.
move to adopt the county administrator's performance evaluation form and the timeline as presented to the commissioners.
And it's in your packet. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have our shared supplemental budget appropriation for
Madam-
a shared regional housing.
Madam Chair, I move to introduce ordinance
Good.
2025
That's good.
dash to be named supplemental budget appropriation for shared regional housing services fiscal year 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to new business. Nobody has any new business, right?
Correct.
Good. Let's take it up next week. Okay, on to Commissioner's consent agenda is,
We have a number of items, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to move to authorize the commission to approve the Commissioners' consent agenda items 8A through 8P as listed on our agenda dated September 10th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioners' reports. Anything briefly that you've been up to that you want to report?
I'll pass.
The only thing I can report is that I did attend this fire discussion in Truro about forest fires and how can we what can we do and what is being done. And all I can say is that there is a lot of coordination, a lot of money that is there from the federal government is no longer there to support these services. But I do have to say that working with the National Seashore, various town fire departments, Department of Conservation and Recreation, and other state entities, we're going to have to try to do this on our own, but there are good people in place, and it was a very interesting conversation. I learned a lot. Anything else?
No.
No. Okay. Upcoming business. We have our sheet here. We approved that. We're going to be, next time we meet, we will be at the One Cape conference that is on the 17th, 16th and 17th, or 17th and 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will be back in business as usual. And Mr. Administrator, do you have any reports or information we need to be updated on?
Just a few items very quickly. I'll go through them. The dredge permit optimization study is coming to its final phase, and I will distribute that study to the commissioners shortly. You heard Aaron Perry just touch a little bit or allude to the disaster recovery, potential disaster recovery planning that the commission's doing for disasters on Cape Cod. We are a little concerned about the relationship now between FEMA in Washington and MEMA, our statewide emergency management agency, and how that relationship between the federal government and the states is going to impact Cape Cod. So I did ask Chip Riley to make an appearance possibly at your next meeting, possibly the meeting after, just to give you an update on the FEMA situation and where we think things stand. It does beg the question as to whether or not the county should be looking at funding its own disaster recovery fund. Certainly we are in a position of encouraging towns to begin to try to fund a disaster recovery fund because we are not so certain that federal monies would be available, either flowing through MEMA or flowing directly to the towns post disaster. Just a reminder, open house, county open house is today, going on right now until 3 o'clock. We also, Carol Coppola, our finance director, has done a lot of work to produce a grant analysis, essentially an analysis of all the grants that we have applied for, that we've received, and those that we haven't received, and look for that coming to your email shortly. I'll forward that along. And just finally, just a reminder, I'll reiterate, your next meeting is not on a Wednesday. Your next meeting will be, your next formal meeting will be on Friday, September 26th at Mass TC, actually at the Clean Water Center is where it will be.
Clean Water Center, Barnstable, Cape Cod, their grand opening
Correct.
on the 26th, and
Correct.
all are invited. We might get somebody in one of our meetings.
And that's all I have for right now.
Okay, excellent. If there's nothing else, do I have a motion on number 12?
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn. The hour of what?
11:25. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your work. Actually.